Hey, so how's the Spurs rebuild going?
You are Locked On Spurs, your daily San Antonio Spurs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Monday. Welcome back to Locked On Spurs right here on the Locked NBA Network. I'm your host, Jeff Garcia, Spurs writer for Ken's 5 San Antonio. Glad to have y'all back. And thanks for making Locked On Spurs your first listen every single day. Free and available wherever you get podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, Ken's 5 Plus app. You know where to go. Go subscribe right now and check out the Locked On Spurs newsletter. It's in the description below. Click on that link. So sign up. It's completely free. You'll enjoy it. What are we talking about today? Well, you can see on your screen, we're going to be discussing the rebuild. Yeah, just a little PSA here, everybody. They're not out of the woods yet. This team is still in their rebuild. How is it coming along? What's going on with this team? Are there players that are holding it back? Are there players that are propelling it? We're going to be discussing that. And then put our guest and myself on the Spurs therapy couch. Or I should say the Locked On Spurs therapy couch. What's bugging us or what's making us happy about this Spurs team? Just a quick note, though. This is recorded before the game versus the Pelicans. So keep that in mind as we move forward for stats. If anybody brings up stats, they might be a little off considering this is recorded again before Sunday's game. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You want to go to FanDuel right now? You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can get themselves $150 in bonus bets if they place a $5 bet and they win. So if your first bet, $5 bet, I should say, wins, well, you know where to go. Go to FanDuel.com to get started. Yeah, but just a reminder, everybody, the Spurs are still in a rebuild. They're not out of it yet. Getting Wemby was a big A+. That's going to help them. But how are they going now? We had already a full season of Wemby last year in his rookie season. For the most part, they kind of brought everybody back. They had some draft picks. They got some picks that are stashed away. They got guys that are, seemingly going to be part of it long term. And there's guys that may not be here for the long haul as well. I think y'all can figure who that might be. But yeah, we're just going to check in on the rebuild. Are we 50% in and done? Or is the light at the end of the tunnel already? Are we still looking at 2 to 3 more years to go? We're going to be discussing that with our guest. He is Matt Guzman, everybody. So welcome back. There is Matt. What's going on, Matt?
Good. How are you? I appreciate you having me back. It's always great to be here.
Not a problem. Make sure to follow Matt on X at MattGZMAN. He's with Spurs on Sports Illustrated. He'll talk about what he's working on, as well as I believe you have a nice piece up there about Riley Minnick. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah, that came out, I guess, a couple weeks ago. It was great. I think we teased it on here a little bit about Riley Minnick's first word being basketball or ball.
That's funny.
So I thought it came together nicely. It was great to kind of learn his story a little bit.
Absolutely. We'll get to that and more, what Matt's doing in just a little while. But Matt, we got to let the fans know that as much as the Spurs are winning, all things considered, the 11th win a lot earlier than last year. Technically, that's progress, but they're still in a rebuild. They're not out of it yet. They're not ready to compete with the big boys of the NBA, whether it be in the West or the East. I don't know, maybe not even the middle tier guys. I don't know who you think, but needless to say, this team is still seasons away from, dare I say, getting into the playoffs, like getting a 1 through 6. Maybe the play-in could be in the horizon, a little closer than maybe a 1 through 6 slot. But this is a rebuild that is still ongoing. They got Wemby. Kudos, Spurs. That was a can't miss pick, number 1 overall. So check. But if we're going down that rebuild checklist, where are we at right now? Matt, if you're looking at the rebuild checklist for the Spurs, what do you think is still left to do?
Well, like you said, getting that generational talent, somebody that you can undoubtedly build around, was number 1. They got him. And then over the offseason, after he kind of gets a year under his belt, it's clear that they've got a lot of work to do. I mean, you get the number 1 pick in the draft, you still go 22-60, And so over the offseason, they kind of addressed a couple of those next points, which to me were getting Chris Paul, getting Harrison Barnes, adding some veteran presences, to a young roster. And also, getting your cream of the crop with Stephon Castle with number 4 overall.
Oh, yeah.
I think that adding a key, very young rookie who's, undoubtedly going to blossom into a big impact player for this young team, but also having some veteran players to kind of balance out that depth. We've talked about it all year, just the wide range of experience and age that this team has. So I think those are a couple more check boxes as well. Getting healthy is kind of one that it's I wouldn't say it's in a list. You can't, be like, get healthy and then let's keep going.
Right.
It's kind of ongoing, and they're still kind of working on maximizing, their players' health. Victor Wembanyama was on a minutes restriction for half of the year last year, and Jeremy Sochan, Devin Vassell, they're still working on that. But I think the immediate thing next is just learning, how to close out games, which they've taken big strides for this year. But I think, as you look into next season or the years beyond that, they have the pieces, they have talent. It's just going to become about, utilizing it in the right way and learning how to win. I think if I were to put a checkbox that's next and describe it, I think it would be learning to win.
Yeah, you're seeing them learn to win little by little. You're like watching your kid grow up before your eyes, and they are growing up. We can see it. Sure, they hit a bump on the road versus Chicago. I don't even want to think about that game recently, and then of course, the way they've been losing and the way they've been winning. And yes, I know they've been winning of late, and nothing great to see them to come back from behind win. That's awesome. It's fun, but it's still a matter of they're not playing 48 minutes. And that's one thing I have on my checklist for the rebuild is playing a complete game. Matt, I get it. Come from behind wins are fun. They're exciting. The crowd gets hype and everything. Right. But you're kind of actually admitting that it's bad because they're down on the scoreboard. And they have yet to play 4 quarters of basketball. That is on my checklist. Again, getting that know-how from jump to take it to the team that they're facing on the court and sustaining that. Sure, other teams are going to make their runs. We get that. But just to sustain that for 48 minutes, or at least closer to what they've been playing, is a huge thing on my checklist in the rebuild. And so far, I got to give them an F for that because they have not been doing that. Now, you mentioned a couple names, Harrison Barnes and Chris Paul. I think they're going to help the rebuild, but I don't think they're going to be here for the long haul.
Absolutely not.
There's no way. They're not going to be here for the long haul.
Sure. And I think that, to that point, Chris Paul kind of coming over in the offseason as a free agent, especially, honestly, I would say is a preview of what's to come. We were told that there's going to be a lot of stars that are going to want to play with this Victor kid when he starts to show how good he is. Chris Paul, obviously in his 22nd season, he's done wonders for, some of the development of these younger players, just their mindset in general. He's been great this season, but like you said, he's not somebody that's going to stick around past this year if he makes it that long. But to that point, he's kind of the first iteration of what these veteran players are going to look like that want to come and play with Victor Wembanyama all of a sudden. Yeah. And I think in the coming off seasons, we're going to see a lot of buzz about these, big names that are up for new contracts that might consider going to San Antonio because, they see a vision there. They like what's being built over there. And so I think it's, they're not the long-term pieces, but they're proof that, veterans can really help a young Victor Wembanyama and a young Spurs team. Yeah. And B, there is a pool, there is an allure and a want to play in San Antonio.
Yeah, and also if you're other veterans, or just even not have to be necessarily veterans of Chris Paul's age, but younger veterans that have been there, done that already. Some names that were thrown out there this offseason, like your Darius Garlands or Markkanens, they're veterans, but they're really top shelf veterans, young ones too. I think you're going to start seeing those kind of players get eyes on San Antonio.
For sure.
As far as the current rebuild is going, we got to talk about Steph Castle because I think he's solidifying himself as the guard. I'm not gonna say point guard. I should say the guard of the rebuild. And I think the 1-2 combo with him and Wemby is flourishing. My only thing about this rebuild is we've been looking, and everybody's been looking forward to seeing, who they're gonna pair with Wemby. Who's gonna be that 1-2 punch with him? We all thought, and some of us may still think, that it's Vassell. And Vassell has a legitimate case for that. But there's Castle kind of lurking behind him, saying, yeah, Devin, you're perhaps a big piece of this rebuild, but you're not like the foundation. You're not the next, if there's going to be a next big three.
Absolutely.
I say right now, you might have to give the edge to Castle as being part of the 1-2 of a future big three.
Absolutely. And I think, they have different skill sets. Castle's not going to be, that pure scorer that Vassell has shown that he can be when he's healthy. But he makes up for it on his defense and his quickness. He's in his rookie season, he's being tasked with guarding Steph Curry and tasked with slowing down LeBron James, and he's taken those assignments and, head held high. In fact, I think one of my favorite quotes of the season, and I think at the end of it, I will still be able to say so, was when he said, if I back down or shy away from big moments or big assignments like that, I'd be doing myself and my team a disservice. Yeah. I loved that he said that. I mean, he has all the mentals, to be one of those big time players and possibly a piece of a big three. So I definitely like what I've been seeing from him. And I know that he's kind of been, like we mentioned the other day, he's become a regular in the media room because he's always having good games.
Yeah, he is. And if the Spurs are trying to take a page out of the big three era and forming, their core that they're going to go, I think Vassell is already in just 20-ish games or in his young NBA career has maybe vaulted himself into that position. Not to say that a Devin or a Jeremy or Keldon, are not vital, but they look like pieces that could still be dealed if a deal is put on the Spurs table.
Sure.
Keldon, or Devin, I think those kind of guys could help, a contending team tremendously, or a team that is right there to push themselves into the next level, and then they can help. But as far as a rebuild, you know what? Well, let's hold that thought. When we come back, we're gonna try to gauge, and we're gonna put it on a temperature scale or just like kind of a weight scale. What percentage do you think we're in right now in this rebuild? We're gonna be discussing that and more with Matt Guzman. Make sure to follow him on X at MattGZMAN. He's with Spurs Sports Illustrated. He'll be talking about that, including his chat with Riley Minix, and of course a bunch of stuff about Riley Minix, including the fact that the first words were basketball. That's pretty interesting. That's coming up next. We're here at Locked On Spurs. But first, I want to talk to you about Mint Mobile. With big wireless providers, what you see is never what you get. Somewhere between the store and your first month's bill, the price you thought you were paying magically skyrockets. With Mint Mobile, you'll never have to worry about gotchas ever again. When Mint Mobile says $50 a month when you purchase a 3-month plan, they meet it. Say bye-bye to your overpriced wireless plans, jaw-dropping monthly bills, and unexpected overages. Mint Mobile is here to rescue you with premium wireless plans starting at $15 a month. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Use your phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number along with your existing contacts. Ditch overpriced wireless with Mint Mobile's deal and get 3 months of premium wireless service for $15 a month. Get this new customer offer right now with your 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month. Go to mintmobile.com/LockedOnNBA. That's mintmobile.com/LockedOnNBA. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/LockedOnNBA. $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speed slower above 40 GB on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details. We're back right here on Locked On Spurs with Matt Guzman. He is with Spurs on Sports Illustrated. Follow him on X at MattGZMAN. And we're talking about the rebuild, where they're at right now. Where are the Spurs at right now? Are they still in the infant stages of the rebuild? Are they maybe in the toddler stage? Are they in the teenager stage? Are they a young man, young adults yet? We don't know. We're trying to figure that out. But in other words, I think the rebuild, Matt, is going in the right direction. Again, sure, they hit a big bump or multiple bumps lately, but that's expected out of a team that's technically in a rebuild. And let's face it, Matt, you're still going to have these type of games. The Chicago game recently in San Antonio, what was that about? I mean, did they even show up? But that's expected when you're in a rebuild, a young team like that. Look, I hope that last season, Matt, there were a lot more of those type of games, more often than not. This season, sure, you had a bad game, Spurs. You move on, but I'm fully of the belief that those type of games that we saw recently versus Chicago and San Antonio are going to be less frequent. What do you think?
Absolutely. And, it's kind of funny because, they got off to such a strong start and they got that 4-game win streak, including wins over Golden State. And then, and so that was during that period of time, it almost felt like it was too good to be true. Like, have they turned the corner already? Because they looked great. They were being consistent. They had great mindset. And then all of a sudden, these last 2 games have been rough, to say the least, especially on the defensive end. And I think it's just proof that, like you said, they're not out of the woods yet, and some people might see these 2 losses and think it's doomsday, like, oh, this team is just as bad as it's always been. But no, it's not really the case. It's just that, they're not fully in that stage where, you can look at it that way and say, well, they should not be losing these games. Well, not necessarily. They're just as likely to lose every game as they are to win it. And this side this year they've been coming out on the right side of it. Luckily for them, but I think they do still have a long way to go. But it's definitely in the right direction. I think they've gotten good pieces, and I think that they're starting to play winning basketball.
I think so. As we mentioned, Barnes and Paul may not be here for the long haul, but I think what they're leaving behind, should they leave San Antonio in the future, near future, who knows, but will last a long time with this young team. From Chris Paul, the way he conducts himself in the locker room, on the court, the way he's very vocal, to the point where you and I have been in there in those press conferences where he says, I think Steph Castle's getting sick and tired of me talking to him. But I think that's going to be beneficial for Steph Castle moving forward.
For sure.
Wemby's going to be Wemby. He's only going to get better, whether, even if I think if he had Paul or Barnes or not, I think he's just naturally gifted and he's just going to get better. One interesting thing about the rebuild, though, we got to talk about this, is like the other elephant in the room, is the coaching position. Whether or not Pop does come back from suffering a mild stroke, according to the Spurs. Mitch Johnson has been given the reins. Coaching is part of this rebuild too. Look, I don't think Pop was going to be here for the entire career of Wemby. I think he's probably start off maybe the first few years, but definitely he won't be for another 10, 15, I don't know how long Wemby plays. I don't think he was going to be there for that long.
Certainly
Do you think I'm of the opinion that Coach Mitch Johnson deserves to remove the interim tab and make him full-time head coach if they decide to go that direction, if Pop decides to step away. But there's some out there that say no, he's too young, he's making mistakes on the court. What's wrong with these rotations? I think he's earned it. He's paid his dues. He deserves it. Again, if the Spurs decide to go in that direction, and I think that's a big piece of this rebuild, is the next coach. And this is kind of like his audition right now.
Absolutely. And I think he's done a great job. I think right now, if I have my numbers right, I believe he's 9-8 since taking the reins, a winning record, which is impressive given the fact that, he was kind of thrust into the fire in Minnesota all of a sudden. And then, he's been there ever since without really a timetable for how long he's going to be there. It's just business as usual, which we've been told quite a few times by the players. I would be in agreement, if they do decide, I'm definitely not advocating for Pop's job right now. But if they do decide to go that direction, I don't think it'd be a bad decision in any way. I think he's more than fit to take on that role and to kind of, whatever he decides to do with the rotations, that's his decision, and then, we see how it goes. But I think he's done a great job. I think that he's been a good vocal leader for the Spurs, even in the small things like working out with Victor, pregame. He's still doing the things that he's always been doing. And I think he's handled the transition really well. And I think the players have kind of been able to, when they see their leader not panicking or not stressed and running around with his head cut off, it makes things a little easier for them. And overall, it's been strong.
Yeah, and he's young. He's younger than Chris Paul. He's kind of this era's of head coaching ilk. He was chased by Washington a few years ago to take over their head coaching spot. Unfortunately, it didn't work out for him. He stayed in San Antonio. But we've seen a brain drain from the coaching staff over the years, from Becky to Will Hardy to what could have been Mitch Johnson if he took the Washington job, or if he was offered the Washington job. We've seen this already, and if he's already on this staff already, the heir apparent to Popovich's seat, then I think he's doing a good job. Is he going to make mistakes? Yes. Let's not forget, he's still a rookie head coach for all intents and purposes. He's a rookie head coach. He has to learn and take his bumps along the way too. He got his first tech recently, so those things happen. But yeah, of course, there's players that may or may not be here for the long haul. Yes, that does include guys like Keldon and Jeremy and Devin, Trey Jones. I mean, you got a couple guys that are going to be expiring contracts soon. I think Trey's one of them.
Sure.
Wesley. So it's still a lot of emotion right now. But what's saving this rebuild right now is the job that Brian Wright has done off the court as far as amassing draft picks,
absolutely,
cap financial flexibility, so much more. I think that is the big gem right now in the rebuild. if the team GM is able to flip those to make the right moves and
Right.
to bring the Spurs out of the rebuild back to the top of the heap in the West, let alone the NBA. I think that is the golden parachute right there, Matt. Those draft picks, those future picks, first and second, and yes, unprotected and their own picks. That's going to push this team out of the rebuild like that. Your thoughts?
Absolutely. And that's something that maybe we won't see it, this February,
Yeah.
but they have so many assets to use in a potential deal between the young players and the draft picks, And so to me, it's something where I'm not so sure they're going to make a huge splash in February, but in the offseason, when we start to see some bigger names, they have an arsenal of draft picks. They have young players that they can use to land themselves a star. And if they're like, if they get somebody in free agency to sign, then all of a sudden they go and trade for another big star. There's a lot of potential, a very, very high ceiling with the amount of capital that they have. And I think that's going to be huge, like you said, to the rebuild, because, not only do they have budding stars right now, but they also have the potential to add even more. And I think that if they use that correctly, we could see something like the Oklahoma City Thunder, who also stockpiled, a lot of first and second round draft picks, and look where they are, and so it's definitely not something that's out of reach for the Spurs and Brian Wright.
Yeah, and where they are is losing to the Spurs. So hopefully that'll be in the future for the Thunder as well. But now if I had to give a kind of a scale, percentage or, a mile marker, if you will, where they are in the rebuild, I'm going to say I'm going to use that analogy I was talking about, like kids. Because you say they're learning to starting to walk. How's that? They're toddlers. You think, can we get them out of the newborn infancy
Absolutely
into toddlers, and maybe they're using the pull-up Pampers now? They're not having to, that. I think we're in the toddler phase. What do you think?
I would say so. I'd even give them a little bit more. I'd even say maybe they're adolescents.
Okay.
I think that adding some veterans over the offseason really kind of pushed them forward on this scale. But once they leave, like we mentioned, not being long-term pieces, it's about what they're going to be able to do after those guys are gone, or after they are now the ones that are the older players. And so I'm curious to see, but things are definitely trending in the right direction. They have taken a step forward from the last 3 seasons. And I think that's encouraging to see.
Absolutely. He is Matt Guzman with Spurs on Sports Illustrated. Make sure to check him out over on the X at Matt GZMAN. When we get back, well, we're going to get on the therapy couch. Yeah, that's right. It's time to let our feelings out, everybody, about the Spurs. We may have been hitting, or at least I may have been hitting about what happened in Chicago. Yeah, maybe I got to let out some steam about that game. But we're going to be putting Matt on the therapy couch. Then I'm going to get on it, and we're going to be talking about your Spurs in just a few seconds. But first, I want to talk to you about FanDuel. Hey, I want to talk to you about FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need and the place where to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So you get a hunch in the middle of a game. You can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bet. Just visit FanDuel.com right now to join today. By the way, the app is very easy to use, user-friendly. It's very intuitive and not hard to navigate whatsoever. Sign up is easy. Hey, look, NFL action, as mentioned, is underway. NBA action is underway. Your Spurs are underway right now. What more do you need? Go to FanDuel.com right now to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets. Again, $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. All that takes is just for you to go and sign up right now. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. We're back right here on Locked On Spurs with Matt Guzman with Spurs on Sports Illustrated. Make sure to follow my next at Matt GZMAN. And we're talking about the silver and black. And yeah, it's time, Matt. We got to get on that therapy couch.
Sounds good.
No, okay, it doesn't have to be bad. Okay, it doesn't have to be bad. maybe Matt has something good to say. We don't know. Trust me, I don't know what Matt's gonna say. I kind of threw this at him at the last second because I wanted to be fresh. I want to get my reaction and his reaction to what I have to say. But Matt, you are the guest now. Let's set it up real fast. So basically, it's the Locked On Spurs Therapy Couch. Matt's going to get on it. He's going to just let it out. He's just going to let it out. What's bugging him? What's bothering him about this team? Or what's making him happy? What does he want to see the Spurs do to continue making Matt happy every time he's at the game or he's watching it on TV? Matt, let's go ahead and get you on the show. Shall we put the music on? Do we need to go back and do I need to get into a position like this with my notepad and go like this?
Okay. Yes.
Very interesting.
Okay. All right, let's do it.
Go ahead. You're on the couch, man. Go for it.
Well, recently, Jeff, I just have been really struggling with the fact that I want to be really, really confident about him and his play style, and I've tried to have such a positive outlook on what he can be and what he can do, but I'm really struggling with the production, the output, and the overall impact that Zach Collins has had on the team this year. I really, really am. I've tried to be really positive with it and say, he fits the mold to be, a traditional center next to a player like Victor, who's a big man but plays so differently. Yet the only games that he's really shown up, I guess, are the ones where Victor's been out, which is not terrible, but he can't really play with him. They can't really share the court and be productive because he just, I don't know, something's missing. And I thought that maybe he'd turn it around this year. I even wrote an article over the offseason saying, I think this season is going to be imperative for his growth to kind of prove like, hey, I still do have it. This is, I deserve to be here. And this is something that, I work for. And I believe he has the work ethic. I love the guy, but I just don't really know if he's going to be a right piece moving forward at the center position. I think they're still looking for that center to pair with Victor Wembanyama.
Yeah. Wow. That was a good one. Yeah. I didn't see that coming. Zach Collins has been just the whipping boy, I guess, for lack of better words, for Spurs fans. I mean, he can, he can have a phenomenal game, and he has a couple of good games statistically, in the box score. But Spurs fans still kind of pull their hair out with him, and whether it be taking ill-advised threes or lack of rim protection, I understand that there's something wrong. Yeah, there's a bad fit there, and it just sucks that he's a guy who succumbed through all those injuries. He's a top 10. He's a number 10 overall lottery pick in his draft class. So he's not a scrub, but it could be just a change of addresses that he needs, to get things going in the right direction. And you're talking about that backup center. Maybe it's Bassey. Bassey's there. Bassey seems to play very well when Wemby's out, or plays with Wemby when they do the little time they've gotten together. But Zach is an interesting pick. Yeah. It wouldn't be surprised me, Matt, if Zach is not here midway through the season. Whether that be in a deal, a small trade, maybe get more assets. I would not be surprised because you see what Bassey does, but Collins is ahead of him in the rotation. So, what do you do? I mean, look, he's a good guy. He's a good locker room guy. We've seen it there. We've seen how he is on the court. He's that guy who's, gonna rough it up if he has to, and get a little nasty out there, and that's good for this team. But beyond that, there needs to be more. He doesn't really create floor spacing. Yeah, so there you have it. Matt goes with Zach Collins. See, now he feels better now. He got off the couch now. He let it all out.
I do,
and he feels much better. All right, so what am I gonna go? I don't know. I can go either way. I can go the good therapy couch way or the bad therapy couch way. But you know what, Matt? I'll join you in letting the bad feelings about this team coming out. And I already hinted about it to start the season. Start the segment, I should say, or the episode, I should say. Lack of 48 minutes and physicality. That bothers me about this team. How do you go on a 4-game win streak and beating some of the best in the NBA and then lose the way you did to Chicago? It's just mind-boggling here. You have sometimes Wemby, putting up monster numbers, and then he has no help or no floor spacing. When Julian Champagne has, and I get it. These things happen during the season, but I cannot let go of what happened versus Chicago. I just can't. That bothers me. That physicality word has been brought up since preseason. Since preseason, Pop talked about it. Now Mitch has been talking about it. The players talk about it. We're not physical. What are you trying to say? Are you soft? Is that what you're trying to say, Spurs? That you're soft? Don't be soft, Spurs. Come out of the gates, smack the other team in the face. Not literally, but just get going. I had a chance to talk to Julian Champagny recently, and I asked him about the slow starts, and he pretty much echoed what I'm saying here. He goes, we have to come out and bring the fight first. And he also clarified too. He goes, I don't mean throwing fists, but he goes, just be more aggressive. And I think that's been bothering me with this team is just the lack of aggression, a lack of just energy, lethargy out there. I want to see this team razor sharp. If the other opposing team is going to get physical with them, let's rock and roll. That's what I want to see. Let's have fun then. If we're going to be physical, you're going to try to physical us, we're going to be physical right back to you. And that's what's bothering me about this team, Matt. Lack of physicality, not playing 48 minutes. All right, your thoughts?
No, that was good. I think you let it out there. Now, something encouraging on that front is I think they've done a lot better in third quarters this year, which they had been a struggle with, a couple of seasons back. And so just them kind of come out of the second half, gates firing, it's great. But, you mentioned it seems that the trade-off is that they're starting slow. They're having to play from behind and have these come from behind victories. And so I agree. I mean, it's been harped on all year, which at this point, it makes me wonder, with how much they are talking about it and how much it's a known thing. We got to do physical, we got to be physical and play 48 minutes. I'm curious as to what has to change or how that is fixed if it's already been talked about so many different times. That baffles me, but I think that you're absolutely right. I think that's a very fair critique.
Yeah. All right, we're off the couch now. We're off the therapy couch. We got it out. It's a good thing to let things out, everybody. But we want to hear from you. What do you think about what we had to talk about today? What do you think the Spurs are out of the rebuild? What is your therapy couch session looking like? You got nothing but good things to say about the Spurs? What are the bad things? You can let Matt know on X at MattGZMAN. I'll make sure you do that right now. We teased a little bit. He has an article with about Riley Minix and just getting to know him. What else you got cooking, and how can fans go check out that article?
So Spurs on SI. It's going to be si.com/NBA/Spurs, or just look up Spurs on SI in any browser and it'll pop up. That's where you can find the Riley Minix article. I got a chance to speak with him and former coaches. He's a great kid, and so I live in Austin, right? And I think you knew this, Jeff. So I've gotten a chance to go to a bunch of the G League contests that are at home. So I've gotten to see him and City Sissoko actually played the other day. And so it's been cool to see him do his thing there. And I think he really does have some potential in the NBA as he continues to develop. Right now, we're kind of working on a very positive piece to kind of, lighten the mood a little bit about, how these Spurs are still playing with joy despite, all these different outcomes and been kind of central to their team chemistry this year too. So that's what I've got going.
All right, make sure to check that out simply by going to Matt's X at MattGZMAN. And we thank you for making Locked On Spurs your first listen every single day, free and available wherever you get podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, YouTube. You know where to go. Ken's 5 Plus app. Subscribe to the Locked On Spurs newsletter. Link is in the description below. Completely free. It's a fun little companion piece to Locked On Spurs. We'll be back tomorrow talking all things silver and black as the season moves forward. But for Matt Guzman, I am Jeff Garcia. We're going to put a lock on this episode of Locked On Spurs.